In the main, myself and Mrs. W see quite low levels of pest damage amongst our vegetables. It will never be zero. You'll always get some damage. But did you know that flowers can not only attract pollinators, but they can also attract beneficial insects that can prey on the pests in your garden? And in today's video, we shall look at just how to get the balance right between pest and predator. Not only will you be creating a vibrant and colourful oasis for your eyes to feast on and for your nose to smell the lovely fragrance, but you'll also be supporting your local ecosystem.
We all need to encourage beneficial insects into our gardens and allotment plots to aid us in keeping our plants super healthy and productive and pest free. To do this, we need to create the perfect conditions for them. Like in the Kevin Costner film Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Here in our garden we have what I call my stumpery. Basically, when we moved here we had a very old apple tree which was non-productive, but it looked so lovely, it's leaning, and didn't really want to take that down or anything, so we've left it and made it into our wildlife area. We have, I've just put some logs and branches of old trees around the bottom. I planted it up with some ferns, and my comfrey is all grown under there so that I can stay there and not get too out of hand. We also have a little wildlife pond area under there, and since we've been here we now have the common newt who lives under there. And newts are really good because they eat quite a lot of pests that you wouldn't think of. They eat different insects, caterpillars and slugs, the dreaded slug. I also have a couple of bee hotels which get quite regularly full and it's lovely to watch them going in, the leaf cutter bees and things. You can see the little bits of green on the end, and it gives them an area to hibernate and to lay their eggs over winter. It's really very good to see. Other things that we do to give beneficial insects a place to hibernate over winter is things like leave the dead heads and stems of the dahlias until March, April time, when they've had a chance to get out and come out of their hibernation. We leave our hydrangeas, the flowers on our hydrangeas, and even if we do cut the hydrangea heads off or the dahlia stems down, they simply go onto our compost heap, giving any other insects that may still be inside there a chance to get away. On the back bank we also keep a managed patch of stinging nettle. I know that it's very invasive, it can be invasive, but we do keep it into a controlled environment. But it's an ideal place for butterflies and moths to come and lay their eggs. It's also ideal for ladybirds to lay their eggs. And once the eggs hatch into the larvae go dining out on aphids and whitefly and red spider mites. So they're a very good thing to have in your garden if you've got space for them. February and March are the times when we start to see the early solitary bees come out of hibernation, and they are quite desperate for food and water at that time. And some of the best plants that you can have in your garden at this time of the year to help them are things like lungwort and comfrey and the dead nettle, and also a water source. We have a little bird bath thing that's down near the house, but I always put some rocks in it so that any insects that need a drink can land on the rock and not drown in the water. They can actually have the good access to the water. But of course, one of the loveliest ways and prettiest of ways to encourage all these pollinators and predators into your garden are by growing flowers. And there's certain flowers that are better than others. Now, last year was the first year that we had grown sunflowers, and we were so impressed with them. The bees and the hoverflies and everything were around them all of the time. Can't believe it, really can't. So I shall definitely be sowing some sunflowers this year, and this variety is called Evening Sun, which is lovely. They have yellows and oranges and reds and quite pretty, quite different from just the standard yellow. Nasturtiums. I love these. And there's so many varieties and colours, you can just take your pick, and you have trailing ones, climbing ones, all sorts of things. So I would definitely advise nasturtiums. These are also a bit of a sacrificial plant to the cabbage white butterfly larvae and caterpillars. You can lose them, but you can sow more, and they produce a lot of seed that you can self-save for next year. And talking of self-saved seed, these are my marigold self-saved and my tagetes. They're both from the same family. They both encourage the beneficial insects. What I will say is the tagetes, being an open flower, are much more likely to encourage them in than the marigolds, which are a double flower. They find it hard to get the nectar from between the flowers' petals in the marigolds, whereas the tagetes, they can just land on the pollen pad and gather their pollen. So definitely those this year. And from the yarrow family, I'm going to hopefully, because I tried to grow these once before and I was not successful, but I'm going to hopefully grow some achillea, and these are flower burst fruit bowl mix. They're a variety of colours. I shall be growing some zinnia. We have envy and salciando. Envy I know is a sort of lime green variety, which I'm going to try this year, and the salciando is a two-tone, I believe. So we shall try those. And I'm going to be trying to grow some everlasting flowers. We have the helichrysum double mixed and status art shades mixed. And hopefully I can harvest and dry those so we've got nice colour through the winter. Last year we grew some lovely cosmos, and we're going to do the same again this year. This is a variety called Dazzler, and I've also got seashell mix, which we had last year, which are pinks and whites and things. So nice mixture of those, and they are very good for pollinators too. And lastly, amaranthus. Never grown this before. Quite intrigued by it. They're large plants. They grow about 1 metre tall, so they're going to take quite a bit of space, but we'll see how they go. Other flowers which are pollinator friendly are things like sweet williams, foxgloves. We've got quite a few foxgloves that self-seed all over our garden. They're lovely, and they do really encourage them in. Things like candy tuft, I found that out the other day, that's quite good for pollinators. And aster are another one as well. There's a vast array of pollinator friendly flowers and plants that you can put into your garden. You just need to choose which ones you like the best.
As Mrs. W said, there is just such an array of flowers that you could grow, and it's not like you need thousands of them. Myself and Mrs. W, we tend to dot them about in strategic places in the garden. They go in the corners, sometimes in the middle, sometimes in the raised beds. They certainly come here into the polytunnel and into the greenhouse. And really, it's all about getting the balance right. We all think of flowers as providing pollinators, and for sure we need pollinators, especially if you're growing things like soft fruit that myself and Mrs. W grow. We need the raspberries, the blackberries, the gooseberries, the black currants, the red currants. They all need pollination, and of course that's not forgetting the strawberries as well. We need those insects to be able to pollinate those flowers. Otherwise, we don't get the fruit. But flowers are also really good at drawing in those insects that will also act as predators. We all like to think of ourselves as being organic. Certainly myself and Mrs. W, we label ourselves as organic. We don't really use any kind of pesticide anywhere in our garden. I don't want to eat it, I don't want my children to eat it, and I don't want my grandchildren to eat it. So sometimes you have to accept, yes, there will be a bit of damage, you might lose something. But actually, if you can just get the balance right between pest and predator, you'll lose an awful lot less than you actually think. Now, I remember last year I had so many comments from you all saying how slugs had ruined this, garden is invaded by slugs. And of course there are many different ways and methods that you can use to try and bring slugs under control. Now last year myself and Mrs. W put together a video all about the different methods of helping you control slugs. So if you want a heads up on how best to control the slug population within your veg garden, then watch this video next. Have a great rest of your gardening week. Myself and Mrs. W, we shall see you very soon.